This is why he texts you after weeks of silence. Let me tell you something today. Sometimes silence ain't what it looks like. When somebody goes quiet, when they disappear out of your life for weeks, when that phone don't light up, you start wondering, what did I do wrong? Did he forget me? Did he move on? But let me break it down. When that man finally slides back into your messages after weeks of silence, it ain't just about you. It's about him. His silence spoke louder than his words, and now his sudden return is telling you even more. You got to learn to read the truth behind the text, because sometimes God allows that silence so you can see the real intentions. That man texting you out of nowhere is not a mystery. It's a revelation. Silence makes room for reflection. Silence is a language all by itself. When a man disappears for weeks, he is not just vanishing into thin air, he is creating space. That silence is where the truth lies. During that quiet, he has to sit with his own thoughts. There's no constant validation, no easy comfort. He starts replaying the moments in his mind, the conversations, the laughter, the way you poured into him. Silence forces him to face reality. Without your presence, he can no longer escape into the safety of your words. He starts realizing the weight of what he had and what he allowed to slip. People don't appreciate water until the well runs dry. That silence becomes his dry season. He's thirsty for the connection he once ignored. He's restless because he realizes the peace he felt around you is missing. Reflection happens when distractions are gone. His silence may have started as pride, as ego, or as him thinking you'd chase. But over time, that silence turned into a mirror he couldn't avoid. The absence of your voice becomes loud. He may try to fill it with noise, with friends, with shallow conversations, but deep down the quiet keeps reminding him what's missing. Reflection is not comfortable. It exposes mistakes. It reveals flaws. It brings clarity that he didn't have when he was wrapped up in himself. That's why, when he finally texts, he comes from a place of realization. He starts to see that his silence cost him time. He wasted weeks he could have invested in building something real with you. That thought eats at him. Silence has a way of stripping away illusions. At first, he might have convinced himself that you didn't matter, that moving on was easy, but the silence made that lie collapse. Every day in silence is a day of wrestling, wrestling with pride, with regret, with confusion. That's the reflection you don't see, but it's happening. That text after weeks is not random. It's the product of hours of reflection. He had to convince himself it was worth breaking the pride barrier. Reflection shows him how strong you were even when he was absent. That strength humbles him because he thought his silence would break you. He begins to realize that your presence was not just company. It was alignment, comfort, and purpose. Silence made him see the difference. Reflection can turn arrogance into humility. By the time he writes that message, he knows deep down he didn't just lose time, he lost favor. Silence became the teacher, and reflection became the lesson. That text after weeks is not just about reaching out. It's evidence of what silence taught him. He thought you'd still be waiting when that message pops up after weeks. Don't mistake it for deep love right away. Sometimes it's not love, it's assumption. He thought you'd still be right where he left you. He believed time froze on your end. He believed you would press pause on your joy, your growth, your healing, waiting for his return. That kind of arrogance is dangerous. It comes from thinking you need him more than he needs you. He figured his silence would make you desperate, not stronger. But what he didn't count on is how much power you found in your own solitude. That text is often an ego check, not a heart check. He wants to see if he still has access, if the door he walked away from is still open. You have to recognize when someone reaches out because they miss control, not because they miss you. The assumption is that your heart is loyal to his absence, but your growth proves otherwise. He texts you because he thought time would weaken you. He never expected time to refine you. That "hey, stranger" message is really a test. He's checking if his silence made you lose value in yourself or increase it. He believes you'll answer with the same love, the same softness, the same patience, even though he gave you nothing in return. Sometimes that text is not about missing you, it's about confirming his own pride. Will she still want me after I neglected her? He thought you were waiting. He thought his return would be easy, but your strength shocks him. The silence wasn't a challenge for you. It was an opportunity. You proved you could breathe without him. His message is his assumption in motion. He's gambling that your love didn't move forward but stayed stuck. When you understand that assumption, you won't confuse arrogance with affection. You'll see his text for what it really is, proof of what he thought you'd be doing, waiting. Loneliness, hit him hard. Loneliness is a powerful teacher. When he stopped hearing from you, he may have thought the silence would bring him peace. But over time, that peace turned into emptiness. At first, he filled the gap with distractions, friends, work, meaningless conversations. But none of those things gave him the warmth he used to get from you. Loneliness has a way of stripping the mask off people. You can't run from it forever. When the night gets quiet and the phone isn't ringing, that's when truth sets in. That's when he remembers your voice, your energy, your prayers, your encouragement. The loneliness becomes a mirror, showing him who truly added value to his life. Many people don't realize how much someone means until they feel the ache of their absence. That ache is the space you once filled. Loneliness hits hardest in moments of vulnerability. When he's discouraged, when he feels like life is against him, when the fake support dries up. Suddenly, the thought of you becomes a comfort he can't ignore. That's why the text comes out of nowhere. Because the loneliness became too heavy, he starts to recall how you were his safe place, the one who checked in when nobody else cared, the one who made him feel seen. Loneliness isn't just about missing somebody. It's about realizing the difference between real and temporary. That text is his attempt to fight off the emptiness he feels. He hopes your presence will once again cover the silence he can't handle. What you need to understand is this. Loneliness can make people reach out, but reaching out doesn't always mean they're ready for real commitment. Sometimes the text is just about soothing himself, not about investing in you. That's why you must be discerning. Loneliness may have reminded him of you, but it's not your responsibility to rescue him from his own emptiness. His message is proof that his silence wasn't strength. It was weakness disguised as pride. Loneliness broke him down. That text is not random. It's a response to the hollow feeling his pride created. The silence produced a loneliness he could no longer carry. He didn't find better when a man disappears. Sometimes it's because he thinks there's something better out there. He thinks the grass is greener. He convinces himself he can find what you gave him somewhere else. But reality has a way of humbling people. He steps out, he looks around, and he realizes not everybody has the heart, patience, or spirit you carried. He thought love was replaceable. He thought loyalty was common. He thought encouragement was everywhere. But in the silence, he discovered something. The world can offer attention, but not connection. It can offer company, but not companionship. That's when the regret creeps in. He realizes he didn't just lose a person. He lost favor, grace, and consistency. He may have found people to talk to, but nobody to understand him the way you did. Nobody could calm his storm the way your presence did. That's when the what if Thoughts begin to circle his mind. What if I ruined the best thing I ever had? What if I can't get that kind of love back? The silence gave him time to explore, but the exploration only confirmed what he lost. That's why that text comes. Not because he discovered something better, but because he couldn't. The world outside reminded him that loyalty is rare, patience is rare, someone who believes in him at his lowest is rare. He tried to replace the real with the fake, but the fake didn't hold up. That's when his pride started to weaken. That message is him trying to re-enter what he walked away from, because he now understands he can't duplicate what you brought. The silence gave him time to see his mistake. His return is fueled not by discovery, but by disappointment in what he thought he'd find. Sometimes when people don't find better, they come back hoping what they left is still waiting. His text after weeks is not always a sign of love. It's often a confession that he went looking but couldn't find better than you. You were his safe place. Everybody needs a safe place, whether they admit it or not. That place where you can take off the mask, where you don't have to prove anything, where you can breathe. For him, you were that. You were the calm in the storm. You were the person he could come to when the world got too loud. But here's the thing about safe places. People often take them for granted. They think the shelter will always be there, no matter how many times they walk away. That's why after weeks of silence, his message comes. Deep down, he's not just reaching out to you. He's reaching for that comfort he once had. He knows you didn't just listen, you understood. He knows you didn't just hear his words, you felt his spirit. That's why your presence hit different. You weren't just another voice in his phone. You were an anchor, a steady hand. Safe places are rare, and when someone realizes they've lost theirs, it unsettles them. That's why silence can't last forever. He eventually comes back to what made him feel whole. That message is a quiet admission. I know where my peace was. You may not hear it in his words, but it's in the timing. He didn't text because the world was kind to him. He texted because the world was too heavy without you. He remembers the way you made him feel lighter, the way you spoke life into him when everything else spoke death. That's the role of a safe place it restores, and without it, people begin to crumble. So when he writes you after weeks, it's not just about affection, it's about protection. He wants back into the shelter of your presence. He knows your spirit covered him. He knows your energy gave him strength. The silence was him trying to prove he didn't need that shelter. But the text is proof he couldn't handle life without it. You were his safe place. And that message is him knocking at the door, hoping it's still open. Your growth shocked him. Silence works two ways. It doesn't just make him reflect, it gives you room to grow. And when you start growing in his absence, it shakes him. He expected you to shrink. He thought the silence would leave you weaker, waiting and wondering. But instead, you started glowing. You found your strength. You found new confidence. You found joy without needing his validation. That kind of growth is intimidating, especially to someone who thought they had control over your emotions. When he sees you smiling without him, posting your wins, walking in new confidence, it makes him question his silence. Growth is loud even when you don't say a word. He can feel the difference in your energy. He can see you moving in power. That's when the curiosity sets in. How did she get stronger without me? How did she shine brighter when I went silent? That curiosity is often what pushes the text through. He's no longer just reaching out for comfort. He's reaching out because your strength startled him. People don't expect you to heal. They expect you to hurt. They don't expect you to rise. They expect you to beg. But when your silence turned into self-discovery, it exposed his weakness and revealed your power. He thought his absence would break you. Instead, it built you. And that's a shock he can't ignore. Growth is undeniable. It forces people to face what they underestimated. That message after weeks is often not about missing who you were. It's about trying to understand who you became. Your growth humbles him. It reminds him that while he wasted time, you invested yours. His text is proof that your strength didn't go unnoticed. The silence revealed your power, and now he can't ignore the version of you he never expected to see. It's not always love. Sometimes it's convenience. One of the hardest truths to face is this: not every message is about love. Sometimes it's about convenience. He might not be texting because he suddenly realized you're the one. He might be texting because life got lonely and you're familiar. Familiarity feels like comfort. And for him, you are the comfort he can always return to when other things fall apart. That doesn't mean he's ready to love you right. It just means he knows you're safe enough to answer when nobody else will. That's why you have to be careful, because if you confuse convenience with commitment, you'll settle for crumbs when you deserve the whole table. That message could be him looking for a quick fix for his emotions, not a long-term investment in your heart. Convenience is selfish. It's about him, not you. It's about soothing his discomfort, not meeting your needs. He texts because he knows you care. He knows your heart has been genuine, and people run back to genuine when life gets cold. But genuine love doesn't deserve to be an option. It deserves to be a priority. If he only reaches out when it benefits him, that's not love. That's usage, and you're not built to be used. The silence was him living without you. The text is him realizing life is easier when you're around, but easier isn't the same as forever. That's why you must listen deeper than his words. A man texting after weeks doesn't always mean he's changed. Sometimes it just means life humbled him for the moment. Convenience will call you at midnight. Convenience will remember you when everything else fails. But love shows up daily. That's why you must test the message. Ask yourself, is this love or is this just convenience disguised as care? God allowed the silence to protect you. Every delay has a reason. Every silence has a purpose. And sometimes that silence was God protecting you. You thought his absence was rejection, but it was actually redirection. God was shielding you from something you couldn't see. Because if he had stayed his half, love, his pride, his inconsistency would have broken you down. The silence gave you space to heal, to grow, to recognize your worth. Without it, you might have settled for less than you deserved. God knows how to use distance as discipline. He removes people for a season so you can see the truth without the fog of emotions. That man's silence wasn't just about him. It was about your protection. It kept you from being trapped in cycles of confusion. The very thing you cried about was the very thing keeping you safe. His silence wasn't punishment. It was preparation. When God allowed that space, he was teaching you to stand on your own feet, to not need validation from someone inconsistent. You found your strength in the quiet. You found your voice in the pause. You found your identity in the gap he left. And when he finally texts you after weeks, don't just look at him. Look at what God did in you while he was gone. That silence was divine strategy. Without it, you wouldn't have recognized your growth or seen your true value. God never wastes pain. Even silence is a tool in his hands. That message after weeks isn't just about him coming back, it's about you realizing you don't need to go back. The silence was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to show you that love is not supposed to come in pieces. When he finally returns with his text, remember, the gap was God's protection, and the growth was God's plan. Ladies, when that message comes after weeks of silence, don't just look at the words. Look at the story behind the silence. Silence reveals things that talking could never show. It shows you if his absence was about growth or about arrogance. It shows you if his return is about love or about convenience. That text you see after all that time isn't just communication. It's a confession of loneliness, a confession of regret, a confession that he thought you'd be waiting, but found out you kept moving. The truth is, silence built you while it broke him. Silence gave you strength while it humbled him. Silence showed you that you were never dependent on his presence. You were dependent on your own resilience. When he finally comes back with that little "hey," or "how you been," don't rush to answer with your heart. Listen with your spirit, because some messages are just ego checks, not heart checks. Some are desperation, not devotion. Some are temporary comfort, not lasting commitment. Your job is to protect your peace. Your job is to guard your growth. Your job is to recognize that you are not somebody's safe place just for their convenience. You are a prize, a gift, a blessing, not a backup plan. If he truly realized your worth, his actions will prove it, not just his words. If he truly respects your growth, his consistency will match it, not just his curiosity. And if he truly loves you, silence will not be his language anymore. So when the message comes, stand tall in who you've become. Don't let your value be measured by someone else's absence. Don't let your joy depend on somebody else's return. Because the silence already gave you the answer. You don't need validation to be powerful. You don't need a text to know you're chosen. You don't need a comeback to prove you're worthy. The silence was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of your strength. And the moment you understood that, you stepped into a new level of power that no message, no man, no mistake can take away. So yes, he may text you after weeks of silence, but by then you'll know the truth. You don't have to go back to what God used silence to free you from. And that, right there, is your closure. That is your confirmation. That is your crown.